All right, then. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition, the 12th edition of a Blank Canvas webinar. This makes it a year that we've been doing this, and what a wonderful journey it has been. My name is Falabomi Amol. I'm going to be your host for today. And the topic we are going to be talking about today is our culture, our canvas, preserving heritage through arts. Well, I think this is a very important topic. I think it is we're at a point where our culture, our representation is being challenged, and Nigeria has been known for all sorts of things. But I think it's very important that we use our arts to make sure that we paint the best of ourselves on our canvas, as the topic suggests. So on the call with us today, we have Toluwase Olaku, founder and creative director of Infinite Treasures Gallery of African Arts. He's a multidisciplinary creative and a cultural entrepreneur committed to preserving Africa's creative legacy through storytelling and creation. I think just in the few minutes that we had a chat before the call started, I've been fascinated by the work he's doing already, but we'll get more on that as we go along. Also, our other guest, our second guest is Akintomide Aluko. He's a visual artist whose work examines identity, memory, and human experience. He has a background in film and photography, and he actually studied, fine and applied arts. One of the people that didn't just enter it with schools, they actually studied it. But it's a pleasure to have him with us. He's a well exhibited and well traveled artist. He has had numerous exhibitions, the Thoughts Pyramid, My Dream Gallery, Yanwa Gallery, and the National Museum as well. So, Toluwase and Akintomide, a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we'll just get right into it. I think the order that I usually like is a certain order. So Toluwase, I'll come to you first, then Akintomide, and then the next question will go with Akintomide, then we'll go back to you, Toluwase, just to keep it fresh and to make sure that
Okay.
we've been accused before that if we have the same pattern, one speaker usually says that the other person has said the other he wants to say. So just to keep things interesting, we'll then we'll keep it we'll keep it flowing like that. So to the very first question, can you share how your cultural roots have influenced your artistic journey and the themes you explore in your work? Let's start from there.
I think that my cultural roots have been foundational to exploring how I see and view the world. I do, love being Nigerian, and that's part of. I spent 17 of my, I think, young years. It's not been that long now, but 17 years is a pretty good time to actually have a lot of documenting and upbringing and being around. I grew up on the mainland, and I was not, I was very much ingrained in, street life. And believe you me, or if you don't believe, it's up to you, but these are my personal experiences. These things were actually, I love the simple life. It was very simple to just to treat people at the same level and just relate with people without any like barriers. And so that, art for me is like that, relating with people without those barriers. Most times we have so many walls we put up. And for me, art was just a way to break down those walls, have those discussions, share my story, and invite people to see things through my own lens. And also then moving into the area of entrepreneurship, that was also the motivation to be able to find people and partner with people that will have that same vision, that collective vision, that we want to share that same experience with the world. That's what we do at Infinite Treasures too. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I see that you're trying very hard to beat the Nepo baby allegations. It's fine. It's fine.
What?
I say
No.
I
Yeah, I grew up on the mainland though, so this is not a joke. Yeah,
all right, no.
you can. I don't need to pull my passport out, but I don't know. I don't know what else. Sometimes
All
people
right.
would say they'll think otherwise. Sure.
Yeah,
Anyways,
no problem, no problem. I only just Akintomide.
Yes, my bro.
Yes, to you, the same question. Can you share how your cultural roots influence your artistic journey and the things you explore in your work?
So please say I've been battling with my network. So please, uh,
It's
tamper justice with mercy. You know.
all right, no problem. I said, can you share how
Yes.
your cultural roots have influenced your artistic journey and the themes you explore in your work?
Okay. So, um, I mean, I don't know. For some reasons, I like to introduce myself by myself.
Please, please, please. You
So,
have, you know,
so, so I'm Akintomide Aluko. I'm a visual artist and a filmmaker. And yeah, speaking of culture and the influences, I think I grew up in Nigeria, obviously, and I cut across a lot of cultures. I was born in Kano State. I grew up in Ibadan and I schooled in Ogbomoso. I did my service in Abuja. I did my IT in Abuja, industrial training. I did my service in Abia State, and now I live and work in Lagos. So all those things really has been contributory to my growth as an artist and how I view life generally. So the culture mix and how I see a lot of people around me, the way they go about their lives, and it gives me a perspective that I try to model together and just create something out of. And it's a job of the artist to be really, really, pay attention to, be observant, and just tell stories around you. So all these things, the cultures I've experienced, has really been really, really um, um has influenced my practice in present time. So I don't know if I answered the question, but basically that's just it. So I've cut across a lot of cultures, and that right now influences my practice day in, day out.
I mean, certainly you did because I think we can't view the world through just one lens. It's important to take from different perspectives, different cultures, and the different experiences that we've had. So, I mean, to piggyback off that to my next question, to you, Akintomide, how does your environment, so whether in Nigeria, the diaspora, or the places you travel to, the places you grew up in, as you mentioned, how do they shape your interpretation of identity and heritage?
So I mean, speaking of heritage, let me go to that first. Heritage is synonymous to inheritance, and inheritance is like a property that you kind of allot to someone or a generation. So it's like something that you pass on. You get. So heritage, inheritance, legacy, they are kind of in the same circle, but you know, heritage is kind of really big. It's not individual. It's not something that's like, yeah, this is how I want it. But heritage is like, it's like a time I've lived, experienced, and something I want to pass on for the unborn generation to live and experience. So for all the times I've lived as an artist, like 30 something years as a human and as an artist, I've been able to, soak in a lot of things, cultures, thoughts, memories, and all that. And me being an artist, like I said, observing things and trying to like, retain memories. I try to like put these things out there for people, I don't like to use the word just anybody, we people, there are a lot of things we miss, humans that we miss, fleeting moments that we artists really pay attention to. So it's my job as an artist to, observe that, take note of that, and put it in your face as a regular being, just passing by, living life and counting time when the time will come. So every stage is one inheritance. And then the other one is culture, which is, I don't know, I've forgotten the definition of culture. But culture, growing up in a place where way of life of people, the way they think, their dressing, their language, things like that, if it influences you, that's a culture in itself. So I think it has to do with truthfulness, intentionality. So if you're trying to like, speak about culture or me thinking as an artist now, how those things has influenced me. I've lived life of other people and their cultures, their way of thinking has really, really, made me think from their perspective what it is to be a human or a Yoruba person or an Hausa person or an Igbo person. So I put that into consideration whenever I'm creating something. I try to like, recreate that and be intentional about it, put it out there in some spaces, probably a gallery or a museum where it will be preserved.
All
So
right.
that's just what I live by, the code.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So should I take a question again or?
No. I think I have it on. So for me, when I thought about that question, I remembered a time when I was telling my parents that this was a real, I'll say it was an angsty time. But there was this time when I was telling my parents that I'm a man of two cultures. I came from Nigeria. Now I'm in another country. I'm in Canada. And there was a time I was, you don't understand, mom. You don't understand that I'm a man of two cultures. But now maybe with a more simmered down understanding, I think that's given me more of like a dual vision. It's helped me to understand that there's a bridge somewhere in there to be able to connect those cultures together. So majority of my storytelling, majority of my um, development as an artist, then moving into being the founder of Infinite Treasures was based off of that, bridging those two cultures and much more, bridging the African or my heritage, like Akin said, like growing up back home, my artistic background, and helping others going through that same from that background or in the diaspora to tell their story, to connect with people globally. So that it's just me extending that more as a platform in a sense. But for me personally, that's how I saw things. It was from the sense of that dual vision, helping me to see and understand, and that in this new environment, it's not like either or, but more so a sense of understanding that I give. I appreciate where I come from, and all that has to do with it, the artistic background, the cultural side of it. In fact, I actually learned Yoruba. I think my parents would testify to this. They taught me, they would speak Yoruba, but I didn't speak it with them. I learned Yoruba in Canada, and that's interesting. I don't know how. It just happened. It just happened. So these are just some things that it just maybe just grew on me because, you know, and funny thing is that I learned French in Nigeria and I came here, I didn't speak it. You know, Canada is partly French speaking, I didn't even speak it. So the one thing that, you know, so it's just like very interesting to have that, um, seeing that, understanding that migration and how that affects one, and then also having your art and how that also can be conveyed in a different space, and then also having understanding that maybe some of the things that are ingrained in you culturally don't necessarily die. They're just looking for a new way to be expressed, and that's what art's all about, and that's what, you know, the platform also serves to introduce to people, that there's a story behind what we do, and that all cultures, people can from different parts of the world can experience the African point of view, so, or the Nigerian point of view, if you're really getting really, you know, nitty gritty to it. So yeah.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that answer. So, I mean, just to move on from that a little bit, I think you talked about when you were talking to your parents about art. So, what was your first conscious experience of art as a vessel of culture and history?
A first conscious experience, maybe as early as 5 or more, or very, very young. You know, I've watched my dad paint for almost all of his career. So it's just, he's always had the board and easel. When he's not on the board and easel, he's sketching. And sometimes he would sketch me, and we would sketch together or draw together. Um, Other times I would actually make my own clay sculptures. Like there was a time we had a garden and I would go and dig clay. I would actually go and dig clay and actually begin to play. I will polish the I would just take the clay and then begin to work on it. I didn't know how to polish clay. I just took the clay and just removed what is not clay and began to work on it. And other times I finished all the paper in the house trying to make sculptures. You know, so these were just I would say it was raw, very raw in experience. And then also I got around being around Universal Studios of Arts from a very young age. My dad would take me to that place, and I would see lots of artists working in that environment. And yeah, it was very inspirational. It had a profound effect on my development and my desire and passion for art as well. And the culture helped me to understand the culture, helped me to understand various things, made me also love history. And one of the things I actually do love is history. I study all those things. And that also plays a big influence on my my way of thinking today. It plays a big influence on the way I see arts and how I want to preserve that heritage moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I hope those memories are something you look back on with pride and joy as the time goes on. Yeah, so
Very much.
Akintomide, yeah,
Yes,
Akintomide,
boss.
so what was your first conscious experience of art as a vessel of culture and history?
Mm, mm. It a very deep one. So I mean, so it dates back to, I mean, my grandmother, paternal grandmother, where she keeps a lot of pictures, photographs of times, and for me, my encounter with such artifacts or relics were really, really, I had a lot of curiosity growing up as a kid, maybe 4 or 5 years old. I read a lot of books. I had a lot of not like I read books, but I saw a lot of animations, cartoons, and all that. And so seeing people was just more than pictures for me. I mean, I think it's deeper than just seeing the likeness or just semblances. It was more of a memory for me. So whenever I see a face, I tend to like dig deeper than just the outerly, probably, because there's a lot going on inside than outside, right? It's actually basically, it's actually a reflection. What you see outside is a reflection of what's inside. So with all the photographs and all those things, and seeing the pictures of my uncles, my aunts, everything, like the photographs will spoil eventually. Here you get, because I don't know what is behind that. They will age, but me seeing those things and being inspired to recreate from such images are something I want to preserve. Not just the pictures of their faces, but the memories of their beings, their existence, their lifestyles. These are the things I want to preserve. As young as about 7, 8 years old, I really want to just keep more than pictures. I want to keep memories. I want to keep thoughts of people I've encountered. So that was more, more like my first experience or encounter with art. And then I read a lot of animation, or I saw a lot of animations, specs. In fact, I did one drawing of Barista when he was really in his prime. And all those things really influenced my practice today. So things my dad did, when he was, there's something we called in Yoruba. Yoruba people will say, nígbà tí mo wà ní Ṣàngó Òde, when I was in my prime, meant when I was in my prime. So it used to be, nígbà tí mo wà ní Ṣàngó Òde. These things were just pictures, photographs that were lying around in the house. And then they tend to like spoil over time, and there's nothing to probably just show for it later on. And this popped up something within me that like, how about getting these things recreated in a way that I see it, my POV as a person and as an artist, so I can kind of preserve these thoughts and memories, which would probably, have longer shelf lives than the usual photographs that I just grew up on. So I think that was like the first exposure I had to arts.
Okay, so are you saying you're no longer in your prime?
Mm, I am, but my
Yes.
uncles, I mean, I've lost my uncles. I mean, I lost in the year 2020, I would say was like the biggest and the deepest, like really emotional for me. I lost my dad and I lost my two biggest uncles. They were both father figures to me. But the only thing I had of them were just call logs that I don't think I'll be able to keep for long because, the way technology works now, those things will be extinct eventually. So, but the things I can hold on to would be something I create from things I grew up on, like their photographs. So I have photographs of my uncles that I actually can recreate in a way I think out, be able to, not just me, but people in the family will be able to resonate with, and something that will live longer than the usual photographs that I grew up on. I
Okay.
don't know if that
No
makes
problem.
sense.
Sorry for your loss. I guess that was during COVID.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Plenty people died during COVID.
Yeah.
But
Was
then, it really, really helped my practice.
mm,
Pick pictures from my grandmother, from my mother, who created some images. They are all still, so one good thing about technology is how I can transfer them from, let's say I'm using Excel now, I want to change to iPhone 17. It was just something I was just like, in a blink, you just put the phone beside each other, and, oh, the images has gone. But where the effort actually lied was me creating those pictures from the photograph, those images from the photograph. then I can easily just transfer them. And God will eventually have it, probably able to pass those pictures on to younger generations. So,
Yeah. Thank you very much. Once again, I'm sorry for your loss.
um,
Um, so to segue into our next question, permit me to read a quote from Nina Simone. Um, she said that an artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, and musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice. But I choose to reflect the times and situations in which I find myself. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives, when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. Young people know this. That's why they're so involved in politics. We will shape and mold this country, or it will not be molded and shaped at all anymore. So I don't think you have a choice. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist. That's something that has stuck with me ever since I came across the quote. So, which leads me to my next question. In your view, what is the artist's responsibility in preserving or reinterpreting cultural heritage?
To who?
To
who is
Akintomide.
artist?
Okay.
um, can you refresh? Sorry, I
Yeah, I
was
was saying,
expecting Toluwase to answer. No,
okay.
I did for you.
So, should I take the quote again or just the question?
Just the question, please.
In your view, what is the artist's responsibility in preserving or reinterpreting cultural heritage?
So I think to every artist, or yeah, to every artist, because yeah, you're human before you're an artist. You're human before an artist. But then I think when it comes to preservation, one thing that rings in my head every time is intentionality and truthfulness. So in trying to preserve a memory, culture, or an idea, I think you should be really, really genuine about it, you know. So which boils down to a lot of things going on right now. Where okay, I was speaking with a friend, not recently, but a while back, and then we're talking about how some people has never been out of Nigeria, but they are painting people in um snow codes, plenty things that they've never experienced before. So I don't think I see. For me, there's nothing true about that. Something you've never experienced before, and then you put it out there like it's something you experienced. Yeah, there is room for you to experience other people's culture. So, but then the truth and intentionality comes from within things you've been exposed to, stuff you've been influenced by, and then the ideas that actually carry with you as a person and as an artist. And then I think once you digress from that, it takes out the originality in the work and whatever it is you're trying to preach to the world. So, um,
Yeah. Thank you very much. Tolu?
I think that yeah, the artist has very very important role to play in that preservation or reinterpreting that cultural heritage. I think the very first thing that we like to and I like to look at when even as from that sense of being being also an artist and then also being creating that platform for artists is that we want to be able to encourage the artists to be as Akintomide said, true to the interpretation is very, because if you're not able to properly convey the message and connect to what you're doing as an artist, then how do you expect other people to be able to connect with it? It's actually going to be harder for them to connect with something that you yourself aren't connected with. And it's not just about just painting stuff or taking a photo, but being able to convey a message, and a message that you are connected to. And so it goes into the better you can convey that message, the more you are able to participate in showcasing your culture, showcasing where you came from, showcasing your the journey or the experience that you're trying to convey, and all that will help. That will help in showing the world what it is from that area of culture, from that area of the social point of view that they can connect with, because it's really that's the way one can actually help people see from the artist's point of view. That's the way the artist can also help people see, rather, to get into that worldview that they are trying to help people to get into. The more you focus on telling how you want to, the more you focus on how you want to tell that story, how you want to, and what exactly, not just develop, not just creating art, not just designing something, but when you actually focus on the background of what exactly I'm trying to convey, then people are able to connect with it, and that actually helps it stay. Actually helps it stay, and also helps it to be cherished by the audience, by the people or lovers of art that you're trying to reach as well. And I think that's a big responsibility for the artist. The artist is the only one that can tell that story, really. And so I think the artist is very, it has a really, really big role to play in that, in preserving cultural heritage. I hope that was clear in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. Just to move on from that a bit, I think that in a world now where technology is taking over, I mean AI is doing laps around the world in terms of how fast you can get things done, in terms of the technology of just getting things in the hands of people as quickly as possible. So my next question, it's following up from the last one, is for the artist in Nigeria or for the Nigerian artist. How do you navigate preserving cultural heritage in this rapidly modernizing society? Because essentially, do you believe cultural preservation in art should evolve with technology, or it should remain rooted in traditional methods?
I think that um, the preservation of art should flow like a river, and the traditional it helps to as a foundation. It helps as a foundation to introduce the culture, but technology helps to further that story. Technology is a good asset when it's tastefully applied. So, for example, using knowledge of social media to uh, create authenticity, to for the audience to not just connect with just, oh, that's good art, but the artist behind the conversations he's having or she's having. These things help as they're valuable tools to connect with this world and to expose yourself to the world. You also have the aspects of NFTs, which at some point, during the 2020 craze. It was really big to go into NFTs, but again, it's a very volatile space. So if you don't know what you're doing, then the audience will miss you and you miss your audience. So you won't be able to connect with people. So technology should be tastefully applied, and it shouldn't be you don't need to run away from it. You don't need to run away from, some artists don't want to embrace technology, but I believe that we're getting into that place where it's, especially with the evolving art world right now, we're getting into these places where people like, I don't know if you guys know Olaolu Sloan. He's very well known painter amongst many, but he doesn't even call himself a painter. More like just the work he creates goes against the grain of what it is to be an artist in a sense, and he openly admits it. Now, what he wanted to do was to challenge the artists to get uncomfortable by using technology to their advantage. That means using the power of social media, using the power of digital platforms to record something, share your perspective, share your point of view. There's somebody there that can connect with. So he's been successful doing that. And I believe that they're more growing. I had a conversation with someone last week that a couple of days actually ago that that spoke about this as well. That he's a person he was in a relationship with had they began to create art. She came from a 2D animation background, and she began to go into the oil painting. But as she did that, she launched a social media platform and they just began to do, videos of that. And it caught on. People began to gravitate to, not everybody, but she built a community. People supported the art. So you can have your own ecosystem. That is great. You don't always need that traditional brick and mortar space, to market your stuff. And so that's what technology does. It should amplify what you already have. It should not take it and just completely overshadow it, but it should amplify. And it's a good amplifier when you know how to use it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think tastefully applied. Let's stay with that. Thank you. So I think from the
Yes,
question again,
boss.
yes. So do you believe cultural preservation in arts should evolve with technology or should remain rooted in traditional methods?
I'll say it's not even Nigeria. I was going to say Nigeria is constantly in motion, and it's not even just Nigeria. The world is constantly in motion. So it is either, I mean, it's both a challenge and a gift. Yeah, we have technology at a time like this. So, in fact, we live in a time where both can clash, but it takes um a liberal person to be able to blend both traditional and technical. And so to navigate that, I think you have to really, really be intentional. I mean, one word I'll throw around a lot today is intentionality. That's, I mean, behind intentionality, we have originality, we have authenticity. So that's, so that's like one word I'll throw around a lot. So, like I said, to navigate that, you have to be intentional. So, I mean, for me, staying grounded in observation is one thing. Trying to now modernize these things that you create as story is another. So there has to be, I think they can coexist, having, giving room for both of them to, um, exist. One shouldn't erase one. So I think it's just It's just that's like the simplest way I can say they can. I mean, traditional and technology should be able to go together. Should go together, in fact, because we have one, we have modernization, and the other we have that is deep. I mean, rootedly deep in um, telling stories and trying to preserve memories and that. So, I mean, I preserve heritage not by just painting. I mean, not by painting the cultures literally, but by, painting the emotions and the culture it breaths. So, I mean, technology is one way to document this, these creations of mine, you know, and, the quiet poetry of everyday life.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So to cross borders a bit, so to the artists in diaspora, how would you advise Akintomide, how would you advise that they should stay connected to their roots while creating art in a different cultural context? I think we touched on something before about how just because they are painting things of a different experience, a different cultural experience, it might not feel intentional or rooted in who they are. So, but I mean, we find ourselves in a scenario where artists like the diaspora, Nigerians are all over the world. So, how would you advise they stay connected to their roots while creating art in a different cultural context?
So let me reiterate. I based in Nigeria. I live and work in Lagos. So, but even though I'm based there, I think I can say I can still answer this question because it resonates. Because normally distance is not always physical, you know. So every artist working between cultures should carry a kind of dual consciousness, to stay connected. And then I believe one must be intentional about memory because memory from is the bridge between future and past. So whatever stories you grew up in or wherever culture you find yourself in, I think one thing that should be your base and your mantra should be how you want to preserve the memory of whatever culture you find yourself in. So, like I said, distance isn't always practical. So, same way as connection isn't always proximity. So, it's about the inner pulse of your work. And when your practice is rooted in honesty, intentionality, like I said, I would train that word a lot. I don't think you lose your roots that way. So, just wherever you find yourself as an artist, just simply find a new soil to grow in, tell their stories, try to, uh, live in their ways and experience their day-to-day lives. You should be able to, ground yourself in their culture, while you still retain your own, where you're coming from.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So, to you, Tolu, I think perhaps, as an artist in diaspora yourself, you can also shed some more light on this. So, how do you stay connected to your roots while creating art in a different cultural context?
Yeah, for me, I look at I love looking through some of the things in the culture back home. I study that. I engage in conversations, lots of things that are going on back home. I try to stay as connected as I can be, with the stories, the sounds, the symbols that help with creating that feeling of home. So I think using that aspect and that attribute also, I do have a lot of conversations with my dad and everything, and a lot of our conversations have to do with a lot of things that are also going on back home, and having to rub minds, it does help create a sense of it warms up the heart to create, not losing that feeling, not losing that nostalgia, not losing that endearment for your heritage. It helps you to be able to channel that feeling and channel that emotion into the creation of art for myself, like in the sense of the emotions I want to capture. Even because as a primarily I do photography now, and in photography, how I began to look at it, a lot of photography, for the most part, in the from the amongst the crowd that I was in here in Canada, a lot of the images I saw were, very, plain and simple, high definition, and I could edit that way. I could tell the story that way. But at some point, it got boring. It got really boring. And I began to look for, okay, how best can I convey what is really on my heart? And it took me back home. I went back and began to look at some of my dad's paintings, which do create that feeling, the moodiness, the ability to use light to tell stories, and not being afraid of shadows. Sometimes in photography, some people can be afraid of shadows. You want everything to be there, but in the traditional sense, you can, in traditional art, you can play with shadows. And so I wanted to bring that back into my sense of storytelling. But aside from that, moving into like Infinite Treasures, it's also the same way I looked at it, that I wanted to show that we can take our culture with us wherever we go. We can remain connected by these visual cues and these artists, and really also my exposure to the new generation, like my friend here, Akin, is these are some of these things that trigger that African identity, that connection, the feeling, the emotion that the artists are also conveying. These things help spark. I think there was a time that even Akin was sketching something on social media, and I saw him sketch it, and I was like, I'm going to sketch too. So that also rekindled my desire for sketching. Now I'm sketching again. So more to come on that. I'm
Good to hear
excited.
that, bro.
Yeah.
Yes, I will look forward to it. Definitely look forward to it. Tolu, another question that is right up your alley. What differences do you notice in how Nigerian and international audiences perceive art rooted in African heritage?
Mm, that's a good question. I think Nigerians will have more authority on how to understand Nigerian, or more or less, let's say, like, yes, we're talking about Nigerian art. They have more authority on it. I think they'll understand some of the mannerisms, the culture that are associated with the art. Internationally, most people try to decode with curiosity. So most times they try to look at things like what's going to draw them in, and they look for that thing that will spark something that connects them to their own culture. So almost they're looking to find themselves in your experience, which is interesting. And I think both are valuable. So if an artist can use that to his advantage, that is amazing. Most times, I think the best art is one that transports you to that feeling, that place, and to be able to be part of that experience. And that, for me, I think that there's much to discover. I wouldn't necessarily say differences, but more so the unique view that both sides look at things can be a blessing. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. So, Akintomide, so What differences do you notice in how Nigerian and international audiences perceive art rooted in African heritage?
So, having my brother on this conversation kind kind of kind of gives me a safe landing because I think the way our minds operates is like it's like he's been answering the questions for me, you know. So and it's really interesting because like he said, Nigerians will be able to, the audiences in Nigeria will be able to relate to and they'll be able to connect the feeling of the work, because it's a shared experience and the familiar gestures or expression that it reminds every Nigerian of the roots. That's one. But for the international audiences, like he said, he used the word curiosity. Trust me, that's one thing you get. Even if you travel as an artist, let's say I relocate now, one thing I'll get going to another client is the culture shock.
Yeah.
So, which is one thing I would approach with curiosity, with a lot of questions in my head, and why are these people behaving like this? It's not because it's bad, but it's because I am new to it. I mean, that's like a new exposure for me. So, so as international audiences experiencing Nigerian arts, they approach it with through curiosity. They want to understand the context, the symbolism, the stories therein. So I'll say as a Nigerian and as an international artist, these perspectives both are valid. But one thing you have to really, really look deeper for is the beauty therein, and then how the arts bridges the two worlds. Yes, how it, merges different cultures, and how it emphasizes on the African heritage that we are putting out there to the international world culture. Or let me use the word exports. We are exporting our culture to them. So they're experiencing new stuff through curiosity. So it invites empathy, reminds people of our stories which tends to be universal, even though it's personal, it's still presented in a universal manner. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then just to piggyback off that, I think so how do you balance cultural storytelling with market expectations or global appeal? So in your words, how do you balance that curiosity that the international market has with the authenticity or the authority that the Nigerian or the home markets will have? Because at the end of the day, I mean, right is due, but still, how do you make sure that you stay true to your culture whilst they're trying to address or feed that international curiosity?
So,
I can.
I mean, balancing it is permits me to use this word again through intentionality, right? Because if there is another part, there's another part of the world that's really curious about what you are bringing into their space. One thing you would bring to table would be the trueness and the originality of your own culture and your persona. That's like be really, really intentional about that. So if I'm bringing, let's say, growing up, we used to do something in Kekere, like we call it, uh, we play around with tires, just going like riding Boris, doing Penten, playing Tinko Tinko. These experiences they've never ever ever had in their space. So if I'm taking that from my own culture and trying to like, infuse into theirs, I'm not telling them to take it. This is just me. I'm an artist from Nigeria. These are the influences I'm coming with. So I'm not selling it to you to take it or maybe to make it myself feel superior. No, I'm just telling you, this is where I grew up. This is who I am. And why don't you just take a seat in my cinema? Just enjoy this part of me. And then, it allows me to, experience their culture too. So I think that's the balance, meeting ourselves halfway. can't you can't criticize my culture because you didn't live it. And I can't do the same to yours because I didn't experience it. So I think meeting halfway, I think that's where the balance, we can strike the balance. I be Yoruba boy, you be Oyibo, you get. So things like this, I think basically that's just where I think I'll keep the balance.
Yes. Thank you very much. Tolu.
Yeah, I really like what Akin said. You don't want to play to the gallery. You don't want to play to the gallery, especially, it's very interesting we're talking about art. So you don't really want to play to the gallery, if you know what I mean. And that means you don't want to always chase what's trending in the gallery, what's trending in this space, what's trending in that space. It's always changing and it's changing even faster. So if you're chasing trend, you're painting by trends, you will fall by the wayside. But if you, as Akin said, you look for that story within, look for that story around you, and begin to document. Be someone that loves documenting as an artist, documenting experiences, documenting people you connect with, documenting. It could be something that you see. Maybe from back home, it's the person that is selling corn, you know, and selling corn and she's handling, and you just were captivated by that, documenting that. It could be the bus conductor. If that's your day to day. Don't go and say, I'm living in VI now. I need to go and find bus so I can paint bus conductor so I can film a Nigerian. No, that's kind of like that is going to negatively rub off on people. But if you're in that area and you see somebody that is carting something, there was a time I think it was 2022 when I went back home and I saw a picture. Haven't posted it yet, but it will come out soon. I saw a picture of three young men posted. They were pushing this big cart, and it was by the thing was by the National Theatre. And I just documented that experience. And for me, it just showed me about, the idea that came to my mind was Nigeria under construction, So that for me was documenting that experience. There are lots of experiences to document. But the thing about this documenting of experience is that you will find people that gravitate to your story. You don't need to please everybody. Like market appeal, global appeal, I think it's you don't need to please everybody. Most times people are trying to, oh, I need someone to buy my work. No, you need a community that will love what you create. That when you have a community that loves what you create, the sustainability of your brand will increase. So if you don't have that community and you're a trend, what happens when that trend goes? I mean, in 2020, it was blackface, blackface here, blackface there. And then at some point, it wasn't trending. The galleries weren't asking for that anymore. And the stats don't lie. So these things we need to rethink. And this is a really, really great time for the artist to be bold in his or her experience, in his or her journey. We want to see that. I want to see that. At Infinite Treasures, we look for that. As an artist, I won't even want to create if I'm not connected to the creation itself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that answer. And also, thank you for bringing up blackface, which was the perfect segue into my next question. Because I think there are some artists that go even as far as denigrating themselves, denigrating their culture just to have that market appeal because how do I put this politely? The world is a very vast place and there are different interests and there are different things that people like. Sometimes it's not the best of your culture that they want to see. It is the very bad things in your culture that they want to see. So to my next question, are there misconceptions about African or Nigerian arts that you find yourself constantly addressing through your work? So
Hello, sorry. I
yeah,
think I
did you get the question? I should take it again. Yeah, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no problem. So I was saying that the example of blackface that you brought up, it's a perfect segue
Mm.
into the next question. Like you find different type of artists sometimes denigrating their cultures, denigrating themselves, who they are, their identity, their race, just to appeal to that international markets. To put it mildly, the world is a very vast place, and you find that sometimes the international market actually gravitates to the worst of your culture and not the best of it. Sometimes they want to see the non-flattering images of who we are as Africans and who we are as Nigerians. So, to my next question, are there misconceptions about African and Nigerian arts that you find yourself constantly addressing through your work?
Yeah, uh, that I could go on with the black face is a larger African or African
Sorry, we
descent.
lost you for a second. Can you just take it again?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So I said that so the blackface movement is really a fruit of what I believe is it comes out of a larger topic, and I believe it's how the let's say black or African descent people are represented. So I've had this conversation. Most times I don't really like to refer to the term black because it just uses one big brush and just brushes everybody. And it creates that just one monotonous feeling. And artists are now, well, then I think maybe starting 2020, were compelled to just focus on this blackness. Meanwhile, like even on this call, we're not even like I'm not black, like in a sense, I'm brown, there are different shades. The same way there are different shades, there are different stories, there are different there's a tapestry of culture. Akin's experience is different from my experience. So if you, as an artist and as someone that is in storytelling, if I follow that trend, what am I doing? I'm shooting and I'm misrepresenting an entire tapestry of beautiful culture, misrepresenting it, and that's something that it's not the fault, not as much as the fault of the West, as much as it is our choice on whether we choose to go by the narrative that we are labeled as. Do we want that narrative? And that's the job of the artist. The artist can reinvent that story, can show what it is that how we ought to be represented. But like I said, these movements only harm. They don't help. They don't help the way. I think those are one of the biggest things that we want to change. We want artists to create art that is authentic to their culture, authentic to their heritage, authentic to their own story, not just create for a trend. And also another thing that we see that is maybe has a negative connotation is that there are many artists today that want to take shortcuts. you want to trace, you want to, you don't want to you don't want to do foundational things that are foundational, study perspective, study life drawing, study, you don't want to study. Studying is now becoming, because of AI, now you people don't want to study anymore because you can condense everything, and the AI can handle many things. So you're tempted to want to take shortcuts. But I believe that longevity as an artist, or even building a brand today, will come from how much you are a student, not how much you are. Yes, the masters, even, like, for example, the masters of African art, I see every day they study, they study, they study. Studying is not something that you can grow out of. But the day you grow out of it, that's the day your brand begins to take a dive. And most times you see today, we want to produce, but the process we want to avoid. Process is necessary. It's necessary to be underground for a few moments, so, and I think that's part of the journey. That's part of what makes you who you are. That's part of what would make an artist stand out over time, so, and we have to start fighting these negative remarks and properly representing art today.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you very much for the answer, Toby. Just a reminder to everyone, please, if you have any questions, I see we have some already. If you have any questions, please just drop them in the chat. We'll be rounding up soon. I think we just have a few more questions and then we'll get to the Q&A. So yes, actually, because are there misconceptions about African or Nigerian art that you find yourself constantly addressing through your work?
Me giving a big brain. Okay. I really don't know how to answer the questions, but I'll say there's quite a few. So, I mean, one major misconception is that African art is always loud, colorful, overtly symbolic, and all that. And that it should be black or has these attributes of Africanness. In a way, my work kind of resists that. And I'm more interested in the intimacy, the quietness of the emotion, the subtle gestures, and something that would reveal depth. So I won't be, so some people, when they hear the word African, they associate it with one thing Toluwase said is the black, one big stroke of black. So one thing some persons would just associate African artists is blackness, and they are not thinking of something way out of the blackness. So through my practice, I hope I tend to show African arts can contain creative, can be minimal, can be as deeply human, and not just confined to expectation of exo exoticism or identity politics. So I am an African. I've lived Africa for as long as it's been over 30 years. And I would not expect an external body or influence to change how I think as an African. Yeah, they, like I said, they associate African art to blackness. For me, it's more than just the blackness. In my works, I tend to use colors a lot. I tend to use, I see stories as more than just the blackness. We have colors, we have uniqueness, you have memories, a lot of things going on here they have never experienced. Some will never experience these things. But it's my job as an artist through observations and documentation. I should be able to put out this part of Africa they have not witnessed or experienced. I'm ready to put that out to change their misconception of what Africanness is, you get. So, which would be against the exoticism and the identity politics flying outside Africa.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we just have two more questions for you guys before we get into the Q&A. So back to you, Akin. What role do collaborations between artists at home and abroad play in sustaining cultural dialogue?
Hmm. So collaboration, collaboration for me, collaboration for me is one of the most vital ways to sustain dialogue. Like if you want to keep a conversation going, um, I think merging minds, beautiful minds, like minds, merging it and trying to say something that's very, very synonymous to us is really, really I think it is vital. So when we have artists from different contexts and exchange ideas, it creates a kind of bridge. I mean, it's a shared language of experience, and this allows us to see culture through not just my eyes, not, I mean, it allows us to see culture not through an individual eyes, but it's, I mean, tends to be collective, and that way we can interpret it in ways, and then we can preserve these things and make it relevant for generations to come. So at its best, collaboration for me is about blending. It's about blending identities. It's about merging, personas, and it's about deepening understanding, which keeps our culture relevant, evolving, and interconnected.
Yeah, thank you, Akin. So yes, Tolu, what role do collaborations between artists at home and abroad play in sustaining cultural dialogue?
I think it's a global village, so it's a place of exchange. So that those that happen to go abroad can carry some of these new experiences of living in new environments and fuse it with those that are back home also that have more of that more of a grounded experience and have a discourse. So it's like a big table now. You have that table where you can have more dialogue, and dialogue is important. Art was always meant to communicate. It's always meant to communicate, and this is just go open more of a bigger platform for dialogue. So that's one thing that we are really passionate about is being able to further that dialogue wherever you are and with people with their unique stories and also not being disconnected from home and home not being disconnected from abroad. We can partner together to be able to help people see more of this this term of what it is to be African. Because I believe if you're going to talk about who is who is more well traveled in the world, I think Africans are, you can say Africans are top five. We're like almost nomads. You know, we travel, we explore, and so we're not our culture is not just existing with just where we grew up in and everything. For example, where we got jollof from is from like Senegal or something. I think I think it was Senegal, and then but it's migrated. How did it migrate? Somebody went there, somebody shared that experience, someone had a dish and said, I'm going to make it. So the platform, the place of dialogue and the exchange is very necessary. In fact, it's growing more and we should embrace it. We should endeavor to have more of these dialogues. And that's what we're doing too with Infinite Treasures, to encourage this dialogue to be that bridge between, even for our artists as well, and to have more cultural exchange. We hope to have that more.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I mean, even if you got it from anywhere else, our job is still the best. Anyway, so a final question here before we get into the Q&A. What advice would you give to young artists? Not to call you guys old, though, I'm just saying. What advice do you give to young artists who want to tell cultural stories but feel disconnected from their roots? So,
Um, I will say it as plain and simple. Get connected. If you got disconnected, get connected. You there's no excuse, honestly. There's no excuse. Like you can call your family, you know, talk to engage more, get connected with people. Listen more. Start listening. I think most times we are so chatty and everything, but we don't listen. Listen more, observe more, watch the conversations that are happening on the dinner table, watch the conversations that are happening at the bus stop, watch the conversations that are happening on global stage. Observe more. That will help you be able to document more. It will help you to be able to convey and to be part of that story. But if you don't, if you are just reactive, if you are very reactive, you will not be able to convey properly. But if you're able to listen more, you're able to have a balanced view. And balanced view will help with being level-headed, and that level-headedness will help with your ability to create, you know, because most times people just want to find what will, what will hammer. And it's not, it's like it's a fool's errand. It's a fool's errand to chase that. It's better to like have that patience in listening, observing, because the best things come out of that observation. Even a conversation could trigger something that could help you in creation. It could be a book that you read more, study more. That these are some things that for our generation, it's often overlooked because everything is all about go, go, go. And if it's having to let you to if it's having to cause you to wait and to observe and to listen, it's like that's wasting my time. I want it now, I want it here, I want it yesterday. Can I just trace it? Can I just, is there a shortcut? Can I just so these are the things that will help when you dial it back a bit. And even with any good product, you need a lot of research. R&D is very important, research and development. So you want to be able to go through that, and that this is your research and development. You're developing yourself, you're researching about the things that are around you. So, and that's very important. So yeah.
yeah, thank you very much for that answer. And yes, I think on it, what advice would you give to young artists who want to tell cultural stories but feel disconnected from their roots?
Can I just simply say I'll go with what Toluwase said. But, yeah, I mean, let me just simply put, let me just say, I mean, like he said, listen and all these things, but I think I'll use the word curiosity. Everything starts with curiosity. As artists, like I've been told, with influence from the legends, the masters I grew up on, the word observation goes a long way. The word curiosity goes a long way. So culture isn't just in traditions or brands and laws. It is in every day. So how we speak, how we move it, listen. So paying attention to these moments really, really, it is where how we build something from deep within. So you don't have to go too far to find your roots. I mean, I think sometimes or most times it's about slowing down and trying to like listen to where you are, catching the fleeting moments and trying to like make sense of them. So so as an artist, from an artist field, let your work become your process of um, rediscovery. You know, like every sketch, every painting, every story should bring you closer to, experiencing humans and their everyday lives. So, um, I mean, you can't inherit culture. Like simple definition of culture is the way of life. So you tend to like grow into it. So one thing you do as an artist is to just sit and observe and pay attention to your environment, the culture you find yourself in. I think it is something you should continue to do through your art and your existence as a human, generally.
And yet, I mean, just to add to that a bit, I think another thing is also to overcome the fear. I think regardless of what it is that you're doing, as long as you are true to your culture and you are honest in your attempts, you shouldn't be scared to put your work out. Don't be afraid from what people are going to say, the judgments are going to get from people. Just be honest in your attempt and just try overcome that fear, release something, express yourself. If they stay in your drafts, if they stay on the canvas, if they stay on your phone, nobody's going to see it. So let the world see it. Let them give their judgment. Let them help you get better at it as well. So I think maybe just to add on what you guys have said already. Um,
Very well
so
said.
yeah, thank you very much for the questions you've answered so far. So we only have two more questions from the chat, and then I would let you guys go. So just following the format, Akin, I'll come to you first. If there's one thing you'd like to be, this question from Emmanuel Okeke. If there's one thing you'd like to be remembered for through your art, what would it be?
Ah, I mean, one thing is, I don't want to say, my sound cliche, but the originality of my being, my existence as an artist, growing up here and there. And one thing I want to put out there is I lived a life and I want you to experience it. So let's say I lived as an artist and everything I put out there is a part of me that I can never get back. So I want you to live the same just through the works I put out there that you experience. So that's more like a legacy. So, and that's just all about my practice. I hope
All
I
right.
made sense.
Yeah, certainly, and I hope that's something that you are remembered for. Tolu, if there's one thing you'd like to be remembered for through your art, what would it be?
Yeah, my handle on Instagram is the lens of the beholder, and that was actually something that I always wanted people to see things or see life through the way I see it. So every time I look to create something, I'm actually inviting people to view things, step into that world, be behind the camera the way I see it, or the way I freeze frame, or the way I'm editing it, or really diving into that image. I'm inviting people to see it. So if they can see what I can see through my lens, that is, for me, that's bliss for me. That's the major thing. It's an invitation into the way I think. It's an invitation into what I believe. It's an invitation into the discovery of life the way I see it, and it's an invitation to have a dialogue with me on those bases. So yeah, so that's what I would love to be remembered for in my art.
All right, then. All right, then. Thank you. So, one last question. This question is from Abiodun Olaku. How about
Hmm.
developing the technical capacity to present the stories competently and efficiently for one's work to stand the test of time. That aspect of artistic development and transition seems to be played down significantly these days, as if natural talent or technical skill is no longer important or essential. There seems to be more reliance on technology in creating art now, more than natural endowments. So, to you first.
You know, we talked about this just a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
I- but you
yeah,
know, like I said, you have to take it from the master himself. You
yeah.
you can't beat the fundamentals. And I think I would say this with a trained eye, you will know those that are studied and those that are not. I would, that's my opinion. I think that one needs to, I keep stressing this because it's something that it's becoming more of the norm that people want to take shortcuts because technology affords for that. And I'm not against technology. I use technology too. I'm a photographer, and I don't have the red room, I have Lightroom. you know, if you're looking at, Adobe software, I have Lightroom and I use those things. But I'm not trying to beat process. I studied process too. I studied how composition works. I studied how shadows, lighting, shadows, all these things. I studied even cinematography. I studied in the area of life drawing. I studied. I have receipts on all these things. So why? It's not. It's good to study the craft and be able to. It helps with versatility. Number one, it helps with versatility, and that's most times if you skip a few steps, those steps will catch up. Maybe you're called to do I've been invited. We went to, let's say, myself and my wife went to an event that is very popular here. It's Vancouver. There's a Van Arts. They do it every year. Big event. And part of that event is that they invite some of the artists that claim to know how to paint or to sculpt or whatever area they're working with. They bring them on stage, give them an easel and everything, board, and okay, sketch for us. And so you actually begin to see who has background in that, who can actually pull out something in that moment, and it shows your pedigree. So I believe you can't beat that. I think technology is good if you know how to use it, but it can't beat the natural endowment and also this being a student of what your craft. You need to be a student, so those are my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you for that answer. So, and to you, Akin, should I take the question again? Or,
I don't know. I mean, the chat's myself, so I
oh,
can
okay.
read the question.
Oh,
So
lovely.
to think is coming from my direct mentor, my God, kata. So see you reading out the question. Me, I just bust. See, you can't see the laugh, but maybe you might have seen me from the video. I just a bust laugh because I'm my God. Thank you for your presence, sir.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And
Thank
and
you for
then
gracing us with presence.
so I mean about the question. See, let me read it again because almost you passed me. Hmm. So I don't. I'll just simply say this because as much as technology is on its own, um, developing, there are this. So I study filmmaking. I did after my first degree in arts. I studied a diploma in filmmaking. Studied cinematography for about 3 years. Um, these things actually informed a lot. things that I do now in my practice. So for a part, that's technology. And then, understanding the traditional rituals, so growing up on traditional canvases and doing all those things. I think there is room for both because even technology can actually help any artist to, transform positively in their endeavor as an artist. Because things I got to know while learning filmmaking, I applied to what I've been doing traditionally. It's like the first time I got to know about Rembrandt's lighting. Lighting, it's a kind of lighting. Rembrandt was, I mean, to a lot of artists, even to you, I think you must have heard of Rembrandt before.
Yeah.
So Rembrandt as an artist, traditional artist, has a kind of light to its name in cinematography. That's big. So technology recognizes traditional, and traditional recognizes technology, where there can be, some kind of synergy where technology can push artists traditionally. And it just depends on, I think it now boils down to an artist being open to using this technology for positive reasons. So not the ones that are using for, not the ones that are looking for shortcuts up and down. So, I mean, I think in a way, if you use it well, technology can go very well with um, your traditional practice if used very well. Think there can always be, there's a room for both to coexist. I think we've answered that in the questions you put to us.
Yeah, certainly. I think I see technology as a guide. It's like to use football balance, it's like an assist. Should not be what is scoring the goal for you. Should not replace the goal scorer. It's just like an assist. So if you are calling, it should help you walk. If you are walking, it should help you run. But it should not replace the very legs that you're using to make that journey itself. Because at the end of the day, once you start replacing yourself, if it's doing work for you, then what purpose are you serving? If you're not bringing your own ideas to the table, if you're not, shining through your work, then what are you doing in and of itself? So I think at the end of the day, it's just a tool, it's a guide, and how you use that tool is what's the most important.
Um,
So yes, I think we've come to the end of the 12th edition of the Black Canvas webinar. I would like to say a very big thank you to our speakers, Toluwase, Toluwase Olaku and
Oluwaseun.
Akintomide Aluko. I think you guys have been giving us a lot of your time, and I'm very grateful for that, and as well as your knowledge. Thank you so much for your knowledge and your time once again. This video will be up on YouTube before the end of the weekend, so do watch out for that, and you can catch every episode of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much
Thank
for having
you
us.
very much.
Thank you.
Myself and
Thank
Oluwaseun.
you, Akin. Thank you. Thank you for that one.
Yes,
Bro,
the pleasure was certainly ours. Thank you.
we'll see behind the camera.
All right, bye, guys.